this live or is this
Now it
being?
is. It's live right now. Yep. So yes. Hi. Good morning, everyone. This is Greg Dixon here. I'm with Joey Chandler, Certain Growth Solutions, and we're going to talk about a new system that he has. So do you want to introduce yourself and describe your 3D printing method here a bit?
Yeah. So thanks for having me on. My name's Joey Chandler. I'm the founder of Certain Growth Solutions. We help people grow their business and their lives essentially one step at a time. And the what I basically determined is that in the chaos of the world, trying to grow our businesses and our lives, the kind of traditional model where you work on your business, you work on your fitness, you work on your finance, those kind of walls one at a time just no longer works. I don't know if it ever did work, but it certainly doesn't work because of all the just the uncertainty in the politics and the technology and the social issues, just so much going on. And a while back, I had the idea of I saw a 3D printer of a house, and I realized, like, wait a minute, that's how we should be trying to grow our lives, one layer at a time, where we work on our business, where we work on our fitness, our fun, our family, our faith, or whatever the four walls of your life are, and we work on that one at a time. And the experience is rather remarkable. Rather than being stressed all the time and worried about, am I moving myself forward, you have the sense that you're constantly moving your life forward, and that gives you the foundation to take on bigger and bigger challenges.
Okay, fabulous. So yeah, you created on your website. I've got a link in the show notes here to your website, and you've got a graphic here. Maybe you could describe what this means here. I'm going to put it on the screen.
Okay. Yeah, so the basic idea is that the silo approach, this is the traditional way of doing this, the left-hand side of the screen. The silo approach is where you work on, you have your idea of, like, I want to grow my business. So you work on, you focus on growing your money and doing all that. And then you think, okay, then I'm going to work on my fitness, and then I'm going to work on my fun or my romance. And I think that just leads to additional stress, especially given the times that we live in, with the political, the social, and economic and technological challenges that we face on a near daily basis. And the 3D model is essentially this: is that we pick four walls of your life. For this one, the ones that I use are money, fun, fitness, and romance. You could also put in adventure, faith, community, whatever your four walls are. And the material that you build your walls with are essentially your core values. So we help you get very clear on your core values, and then how to take actions that align with those values each and every day. And the kind of the secret sauce of the process is that we have a system that helps you essentially burn away the doubts and the fears that inevitably come up as you're trying to grow your life. And that allows you to just keep moving smoothly in alignment with your values and your goals.
Fabulous. Okay, let's see if I can get this off the screen. Yeah. So this is a pretty new system that you've developed. I think, is it? You're just rolling it out now.
Yeah, it's been out. It's been basically been working with clients now for the past couple of months, and I've been working with core values for a good probably almost 10 years, and I followed that same approach of, like, let's pick a area of your life, your romance, your business, your fitness, and then we would apply core values to that particular area, and it produced decent results. Like, it wasn't horrible, but the interesting part is that inevitably in the conversations that we would have, we would go from talking about a person's business to their family, to their fitness, to what they're doing for fun. We would tend to go all the time, just kind of bounce back and forth and to address whatever was really pressing for the person. And I thought of that as, like, wow, that's a benefit of using core values, because they're kind of core to everything. And it's just been in the past few months, actually, where I was like, wait a minute, it's actually more helpful for a person to address the four important areas of your life intentionally, rather than just kind of do them haphazardly. Because one of the big benefits that you get is that as you take on something, say in your romance, that may teach you something about your business, and taking something on about your business may teach you something about your fitness. And so you have this constant growth and learning from each other. I call it cross layer mastery, where something you learn in one area benefits you in another. And because you're being intentional each and every day, you're learning and moving forward.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, years ago, I sort of did a mind map of a system called Personal Balance EQ, which I never actually delivered, but it's kind of similar, where you pick areas in your life, and the whole idea was that if things get distorted, if one area is too out of line, or I think your first silo there is, if you're just focusing on money, then everything else is falling away, and it's not balanced.
Yeah. Yeah. And the interesting part is it kind of makes sense. I'm going to focus on one, and I'm going to go for it. Like it makes sense intellectually. But the problem is that our lives are not siloed that way, especially now with phones and cell phones and AI and TikTok. You scroll through, your TikTok, and you'll see politics and economics and business and this fun and social and all that kind of stuff within a few minutes. And so we just need a different approach. And the thing that it allows this to happen is that because the work that I do is all based on core values, we don't try to recreate the wheel each time. We're not trying to figure out a new way of doing your business, then a new way of doing your romance, a new way of doing your fun, a new way of doing your fitness, or whatever your categories are. We're essentially taking your values. Like, let's say one of your values is adventure. We say, okay, how can you bring a sense of adventure to your business? How can you bring a sense of adventure to your romance? How can you bring a sense of adventure to your faith, or your community? And because we can use the same process over and over again, we don't overwhelm. We don't have to go through a lot of trying to figure stuff out, because nowadays, again, if it takes a lot of work to figure out, it's just way too stressful.
Yeah, and there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things going on, a lot of changes in recent years, really. So quite a lot of uncertainty. So that's so your first process is to go through with your client to work out their core values, and
yeah, we work out their core values and their four walls. So if you think about it, we choose the material of the house that you want to build. We choose the what the walls you want your walls to look like, and then we start taking action. And it's the core values. The other thing that we do with core values that's different, is we add what I call a spark word. And a spark word is like fun, play, creativity, adventure, curiosity. It's something like that. And by requiring that type of word, it broadens a person's awareness of who they are, because we all have that side of us, that playful, adventure, creative, that we have something in part of our lives. And too often as adults, we end up getting way too focused. And so by including a word like, say, curiosity in your core values, it helps you just broaden your awareness, especially in times of stress or uncertainty.
Okay. So the whole idea is to build a really good foundation so that you can deal with things as they come.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what is it? What's the process for somebody if they want to work with you on this?
They can go to a certain certaingrowth.com, and there's a link there. You can either set up a time to talk, or I'm actually just putting up there a link for people actually to identify their values themselves, so they can get started with that. But if they go there, they'll be able to go through there. And just the main thing that I ask people is like, look, if you're struggling, honestly, if you're a guy that looks like us, that is, you've been around the block a few times, and things aren't quite working the way you want, please give this a try, because your values are way more powerful than you realize.
And then how long do you work with a client typically, or what's
They're generally, the sessions are 7 weeks. We
7 weeks?
do, yeah, we do 3 weeks of what I call foundation building, where it's basically practicing this particular approach, and they're using it to grow their foundations, where we identify their values and their walls, and we start practicing it. We take a week off, just to kind of give some space, and then we do 3 weeks of focused on a particular area. So we're still building the foundation. We're still taking action in all 4 areas, but we practice applying it if they want to, say, work on their business or their fitness or their fun. And the end result being they will have grown all 4 areas of their life. They will have grown a particular area with intentionality, and they will have learned a system that they can use over and over again.
And that's great. I'm just going to put the website on the screen here.
Yep.
Yeah. So certaingrowth.com, 3D printed. And I think from there, there's a button to make an appointment with you.
Yep. Yeah. And right now, just doing a call, just to talk to people, make sure that we're a good fit for each other. But yeah. So this is, I'll say this is for people that want to grow. Like, if you're not into growth, this is not you. Like, if you want results without having to do at least a little bit of work and kind of explore the world, this is not, this is for someone who's willing to say, hey, these are my values and how can I use them? If you're not willing to look at yourself that way, there's better programs than I have.
Okay. So yeah, so that's a great invitation. Go visit there, certaingrowth.com/3D printed, and make an appointment. And then because it's a free get to know each other session, right? And you just see if it's a good fit for the person. And
yeah, we'll identify their 4 walls. They'll walk away with some more clarity about what it is they want.
Yeah.
And then if they want to go forward, we'll set up a time to identify their values and start getting to work.
Okay. Start getting to work. There we go. So that's your call to action. Come make a call, start building your 4 walls and getting going with your core values, all of that. Yeah. Related to values, years ago, I was in software development and worked for a human resources testing system, and one of the very large Canadian telecom companies had us design a thing called their values in action, so that they had gone through and had about 5 or 6, maybe 7 areas, and then we created an assessment related to those.
Yeah, you were looking at corporate values, is that right?
Well, values of people to be on a team to work in a corporation.
Yeah.
This is all employee oriented or management candidate oriented. So.
Yeah, the interesting part that I have found, and so I'm a huge fan of values, but I really look at like what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, corporate values don't work. Everybody has that experience of going to a workshop or some sort of corporate retreat where they talk about values, and pretty much by the time lunch comes around, people have forgotten what those values are, or they don't feel like the values are true. And when I really started to look at that and going like, why is that? Because values are so important to people, and then we've been talking about corporate values for 40 years. Like, they are so ingrained in corporate culture and how if you're going to grow a business, you got to know your values, and it's part of kind of the lexicon these days, but they don't work. They simply don't work. And when I looked at it, like, why is that? And I think the big reason is that our corporate or our personal values are always going to be stronger than our corporate values, because we just have more experience with them. If I go get a job today, my values of connection, curiosity, and fun are going to far outweigh any values that a corporation would give me. And then the other part is that values have to be felt. there is a very real experience when you are living true to your values and when you're not. Like there's this, it will show up in your body, a different feeling of that. But that takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of exploration, a little bit of awareness. We just don't have the time with corporate values to really get that feeling. So I think it's far better for companies to, one, create a clear mission, a clear vision of what they're trying to accomplish, then identify the roles that they have in the company to fulfill on that mission, and then help their employees identify their own personal values and how they can use their values to be successful in the roles. Because if they're successful in those roles, they will help the person achieve, or the company achieve their mission and their vision. And it makes it way easier than trying to go to a workshop and determine what the corporate values are and what that means and how does that feel and all that kind of stuff, because you're not going to use them anyway. And if we're honest, we don't use the corporate values anyway. So why bother? They just don't work.
Yeah, sometimes a corporate story will work, though. I went to visited Ben and Jerry's in Vermont, right? And they did a great job. They had like large displays about their history, their founders, what they were trying to do. The other funny thing is they had a Hall of Fame with all their best flavors, and in the back they had a graveyard of all the retired flavors.
Yeah, no, I've been to that museum. It's incredible. And yes, the Ben and Jerry's story is amazing. But for a Ben and Jerry's employee who's working on the packaging team, their personal values are and then how the vision and the mission of Ben and Jerry's. Ben and Jerry's has a very strong mission and vision. I, as a person coming to work there, that I believe that mission ties into my own values. I feel like I want to be a part of that. And then the question is, how can I use my values to fulfill on the role that I have at that company to help with that vision or that mission? That's the way it would work. You can't, like me trying to become or act like Ben or act like Jerry is inauthentic. It wouldn't work. We all have to be, we're all only going to be ourselves. Otherwise we're going to burn out.
Yeah. So sometimes that comes down to the employee. Bonnie and I we were in Texas and we went into a Whataburger. We'd never been to a Whataburger before. And it's a bit of a different adventure. And we asked the young woman behind the counter, says, well, what's the story with Whataburger? Anyway, she went on to this brilliant description of how, what the company was and what made it different than everybody else. Like she had drunk the Kool-Aid, as they would say, but it was fabulous.
Well, but if she was able to tell that story in an authentic way, I'm guessing it was telling it from her perspective. Like what makes it?
Well, because we asked her what she liked about Whataburger.
What she liked about it, and she told this amazing story that clearly made a difference for you. If she went into, what do you call it? Espousing the corporate values, it would not have landed for you the same way that the way it did.
Yeah, no, it was good. So, when I first started, when I went to, I studied computer systems because we had kids and said, geez, you should get something that can get you a job. Anyway, I ended up working for a large corporation, and I never ever expected to work for a company, but they had whoever created that company really knew what they were doing. There was just a tremendous culture and a education program and things. By the time I got there, it was biodegrading, but because another company had the accountants had taken over and it lost its soul, right? But even after 5 years of it being diminished, it was still the best company I'd ever worked for. It was just, if you can get that right, you can get that right. And what you're talking about is getting it right for yourself, for your own life.
Yeah. And when you start to get trained and train yourself on your own personal values, you start to take more responsibility. If you're in a situation, that it's up to you to bring your values to that situation to figure out solutions, as opposed to, like, oh, it's the corporation's fault, they're doing this or they're doing that. And yeah, there are businesses that are doing awful things, but you have much more say and much more power, or we all do, than I think we give ourselves credit for. And when you come from a place of how can I apply my values to my role or to this situation or to my relationship or to my fun or to my fitness, you come up with answers that work for you and that you'll actually take action on. And it simplifies the whole corporate training sort of thing so much. But and what I'm chipping away at is that there's 40 years of very, very ingrained corporate culture, or, corporate core values are the way to go. And I'm just trying to chip away at that right now.
Yeah. So you remember that book, What Color Is My Parachute?
Yep.
Yeah. And the whole idea there is that if you were going to work for a company, you were really interviewing the company. They weren't interviewing you. And I think that falls in with your core values. So you have to find a company that's doing something that resonates with what you think is worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. My values are, well, here's actually a good example. I had a client who, his values were, authenticity, growth, and play. And and it was interesting because he was like, I don't know if I can share these values, like authenticity is good, but like play, like, or no, it was no, sorry, it was family, growth, and play. That was my bad. Family, growth, and play. He's like, I can't talk about family at a business situation because it's business and family is family. And so we talked about it a bit, and we explored how family met, kind of the traditional family at his home, but at work, family meant like working together, and it was a sense of team and really supporting each other. And he was still really like, I don't know. Fast forward a few months, he did a job interview, and he wrote me. He was so excited. He's like, I can't believe this worked, because the hiring manager said, we're looking for someone who is really grounded. And my client said, well, I don't know if I'm grounded. I don't know that, but I do know my core values, and my core values are family, growth, and play. And they went and talked about that. And he ended up getting hired there. And when a month later or so, when they were bringing him on, the hiring manager said, what really struck was that you knew your values and you were so willing to share about them. And it got me thinking about my own, and they ended up having this whole conversation. And it was just like, knowing your values just helps you get grounded and be able to find a place that works for them. And he ended up working there for a couple of years, doing well, and he ended up going to someplace else. But it just allows you to figure out what works for you.
That's great. Yeah, and that's I wrestle with that myself. What do I want to do when I grow up? So, and
I'll just say this for people that are in that space, that like, because there's a lot of folks, our age, that are like, okay, and then I'm now 40, 50, 60 years old. Like, I should be grown up, but I'm not, the interesting thing is that everything that you have done is some reflection of your values in some way.
Yeah.
Maybe not 100%, and maybe it didn't work out quite the way you intended. But when you get clear on your values, you can look back through your life and kind of see the thread of your life, and that will give you a stronger foundation. So then you can say, oh, here's how my values showed up here. And that will give you, here's where I didn't, here's some mistakes I made. And that will give you a stronger foundation for taking a step and moving forward. And that's a far different experience than like, what do I do when I grow up? To say like, hey, I've been about fun my whole life. Here's where I've done it. Here's what I'm trying to do. And all of that comes from just having clarity around your values.
Yeah. Yeah. As you're saying, like for me, I've done a lot of different things, and it doesn't really necessarily make sense until you sort of look backwards and see what you've done. So one of my things is I kind of value volunteering and community things. So I've done a lot of that, to the detriment of my income. Yeah, so it, it's rewarding, and it's a good thing to do, um, and I still do that a lot. So,
Well, in that case, and again, that's a pretty common thing that we look at our values and say, "Oh, well, my values had me do this thing," but in my eyes, I'm also going to say creativity. Obviously, you got the music behind you, and you know what I know of you. Creativity is a part of who you are. So, or at least that's my guess. You know,
yeah,
you may use different words, but if you notice yourself going like, yeah, I spend a ton of time volunteering and doing this, but it's to the detriment. I am not getting served by that, or I'm not getting it served the way I can. Then you can bring that question is like, okay, how can I get creative here? What is something that I could do, or what is a way that I can act or approach this that's a little bit different to help me not only make the contribution that I want to make through the volunteering, but also allow me to make the money that I want, so that I can support myself and have the resources, so I can have the freedom to go do whatever it is. And this is where the values and especially the spark word come into play, because they get you thinking a little bit outside the box, going like, okay, how can I do this? How can I make it work? Because it's one thing to volunteer, which is totally awesome, but if you're sacrificing yourself, at the end of the day, that's probably not going to be sustainable.
yeah. So that's why I'm looking for passive ways of making some money. So, and we do. You're right about that. I've always been involved with art and music,
Yep.
and Bonnie's likes dance. So and I studied literature. So, and my best thing is combining all that: music, literature, and movement, all that kind of thing. So, like the closing ceremonies at the Olympics in Verona was kind of where all of that stuff came together.
How so?
Well, they had the closing ceremonies. They had music, and they had everything. That the stadium there is about, I think it's 2,000 years old. The Romans built it, and Mozart performed there. So they had a nod. A lot of the presentation had a nod to sort of a lot of the composers and artists of the past. And then they had modern things, and there's a lot of dance. So there's dance, there was music, there was storytelling, all that combined into the presentation. It was
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Yeah, and I love the fact that in the opening ceremonies, they did the opening ceremonies in different cities.
Yes. Yeah.
Like to me, that's like getting creative. They're like, we have this problem. We have, because of environment, because of trying not to basically, have to build up an entire infrastructure in one area. I think they had a really good idea of doing it in different areas. And instead of trying to have all the athletes in one place, and that would have hindered all sorts of caused all sorts of transportation problems. They got creative and they said, okay, well, let's just do the opening ceremonies in whatever it was, 3 or 4 different places, and it totally worked. There was absolutely, from the from the TV perspective, maybe if you were live there, it was a little bit different, but from our perspective, it was 100% awesome.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just like getting creative. That's just like, okay, how can we do this a little bit different to serve the needs that we have right now?
And even the closing ceremonies were in Verona, which wasn't where any of the other events were, but it was a central spot and a historical spot. And like in Vancouver, we had most of the things happened in the Vancouver area, but all the Alpine stuff were up in Whistler,
right,
which is a couple hours north. So not quite as spread out as Italy was, but yes.
Right. But I think like nowadays, like we have to be able to think outside the box and stay grounded. That's the part. It has to stay grounded in the experience and the history and the culture of what we're trying to do, but try to think outside the box. And your values are the place where that starts. like with AI nowadays, there's you literally now can type in anything you want to find an answer to anything you want and get 100 different answers for anything. But all of those answers aren't doing people a lot of good, and it's starting to cause they're calling it like AI brain rot and AI, what do they call it, work slop, where just the material's just not, it's being created, there's a lot of it, but it's just not that good. And but if you actually include your values in your AI prompts and your custom instructions, you start to create material that more aligns with who you are and what you're about, and that strengthens it. It helps you learn more about yourself, but it's all based on you. And AI helps you come up with some ideas that are a little bit outside the box. But we have to know more about ourselves. That's the fundamental thing.
So I've been using AI as a kind of a consultant. So I'm using Grok and I'm loading in like course material or things about me. And then I ask, it says, I have an idea. It says, well, with playing music for fun, is there a market for that? Right. And you'll come up with a lot of different things. And anyway, I've been involved with this sort of AI debate. There are a lot of writers, right? It says the world is coming to an end, because it's going to eliminate all writing jobs, which it probably will, most of them eventually. But the idea is that the output isn't good anyway. So yesterday I had this weird idea. It says, well, what if I get Grok, I'll get it to read Shakespeare's King Lear and then write a parody of that based on modern events, and the results were just absolutely hilarious. I called it. I did the only thing I suggested it was instead of King Lear, King Donnybrook. And you can imagine where it went with that.
Yeah, yeah, but even when you start to put your so like I have a prompt that is that I use almost all the time now, like, here are my values, here are my 4 walls, here's how I solve problems. And what ends up happening is that AI becomes a reflection of who I am. My AI becomes a reflection of who I am, not another entity. Now, it's not something that's taken away something. It's something that's expanding my awareness of what my values mean, what's possible inside of my 4 walls, what I can actually do. And that works. And I'm able to bridge that gap between kind of my own creativity, my own sensibilities, my own sense of who I am, and the power of AI. I'm able to bridge that gap by giving. It's not by having AI be better. It's by giving AI more of my values and having it operate off of that. And so, and from there, then you can write as it's kind of remarkable how much you can write, because you write stuff that is in general, it's not 100% perfect, but is in general aligned with who you are and how you say things and what you're trying to accomplish, as opposed to just coming up with new ideas.
I loaded in. I have access to every copywriting course written by American writers and artists, and I've been adding them in. One was, I need an editor sometimes, so there is a copy editing course. So I loaded all the transcripts in there. So I tend not to use it. I'm not usually that happy with getting AI to write things, but I'll write something and then get it to review it and maybe rewrite it. And it's always astounding what it comes back with. And also, if I was an editor, it's a way more polite copy editor than I would have been. It says, oh, you had some really good ideas. That was fabulous here, and blah, blah, blah. And then the answer is, it looks a bit like a brain dump,
Yeah. Well, that's one thing is, like, you could ask AI to write and rewrite something for, 100 times. Whereas if you had an editor do that, they would get pissed after you after like a couple times.
Well, yes, for sure. I took on trying to edit somebody's work and realized how insanely difficult that is. And if the client is difficult, I just don't have the patience for it. I'd be reaching for my taser. I know a copywriter and copy editor, and she's sometimes she charges a lot of money, but I know there's some clients that just says she'll be
Well,
happy to get the project done.
yeah, I mean, I still think a human editor is really, really important because I think one big challenge that AI has is that AI doesn't get tired in reading your work. It will read every line, every word, it will go through everything. Whereas a human editor will, it will bump into something and, he or she will bump into something and then kind of check out. And a good editor will notice when they check out, but AI will read everything. So I think AI writing ends up being very, very dense because it will when you get responses from AI, it will actually read everything. Whereas the person will be like, dude, I couldn't handle this
Well,
after like 2 pages. So
the-
that's one thing that is
yeah,
again, that's where the human side still comes into play.
yeah. The other thing is that the editing process really needs sort of you almost need three different editors to go through it. And for somebody writing a book, they just don't have the resources to to
Yeah.
to do that, right? So this is yeah, it can help. I think really people who embrace it and use it, even if they're in the planning process or whatever, or editing or writing things, um, I still think maybe it's going to lead to the demise of humanity. But that's I'm between automation, AI, and political insanity. We've got some challenges coming up.
Yeah. And that is right there, right there. That is the reasoning behind the 3D printed life. Right there, what you just said. Like we got AI, we got political, we got technological, like all of that, and it just rattles off your head. If you're trying to grow your business, you're trying to grow your business one wall at a time, it is not going to be sustainable inside of the storm of all of that chaos.
Yeah,
That's why that 3D printed life model is just works because every day you can wake up and say, okay, how can I move my business forward? How can I move my romance forward? How can I move my fitness forward a little bit? And as you build up a little bit, then you're like, okay, I got this, I can do this, and then I can do more. But you
yeah,
still have that really strong foundation in the sense, and I have to tell you, to wake up in the morning and go to bed at night, being able to say, I moved my entire life forward a little bit today, and I've done it for past few days and I will do it again tomorrow. That certainty is rather remarkable.
yeah.
Even when you have horrible days, knowing that you've done that is kind of amazing.
Kind of amazing. And the idea is, like you can review your values and where you want the walls you're building, and say, what's my next best step? What can I do now? And some days there's only going to be something really small, and then other days you get half a wall done.
Yeah, no, 100%. You get, you're like, okay, I sent a text to the other day. I was like, wow, I haven't done much on the romance here today. I sent a text to somebody that had gone on a couple dates with, like that. Like that. That was it. That was not a massive romance thing, but it moved. It was a little bit, and if you can take a little bit of intentional action in areas that are important to you, it builds up that sense of like, I can do this. And I think one of the that sense of that there's a lot of things going on, politics, social, economic, technological, all that. A researcher I read, he called it a poly crisis, where we're just dealing with crisis from a whole bunch of different areas. And he said one impact of the poly crisis is that we lose hope, that we lose a sense that we can actually make a difference in our lives, in our world, in our communities, with our families, with our business. We essentially lose hope. So we end up kind of going through life without this sense of hope. And so we don't really take bold actions. We don't have a sense of energy. We don't have a sense that I can do it. And the 3D printed life approach gives you a sense of hope because you have not only moved your life forward, but you have a system for doing it. And you know that you can do it tomorrow and the day after that. And it's just different.
Yeah. So one of the things is a lot of that, like Bonnie's a little bit prone to doom scrolling, right? Yeah, following a bunch of posts, a lot of stuff, and to some degree, and even the online stuff, like a lot of the jobs that are going to go away are kind of virtual in a way. So I myself have been doing a lot of more things. Like I've been helping out with road construction, and Bonnie's went out to make bannock today, and getting out into the community and playing music and helping some things out. So it's more, even though the world seems to be falling apart, you can live your life locally in a way, and not necessarily as one person I was talking to. We're involved with a sort of a Saturday meetup with seniors, right? And one woman said, yeah, so people come and they want to talk about this and that. So I don't really want to worry about that. I'm just going to live my life today, and what those other people do, you know. And in a way, that's happened. If things really go wrong, it will catch up with you. But most of the time, we don't have control over that. We can't really, sometimes you know, you need to step up and say something. But other times, if you live your best life, you're treating your friends and family, your clients and people online, and you're living your values, you're living your life, then that's what you need to do. So
Yeah, it's a balance. This is going back and forth. Sometimes what there is to do is step up and say, hey, I'm speaking up against these political or social or economic or technological issues, like to voice, because at the end of the day, nothing changes unless someone stands up and says we need to do something better. So there is that addressing the external stuff, and there's taking care of yourself, in your local area, doing something for my fun thing. Just the other day, I was like, I haven't done anything fun today. Let me, and that thought had me like basically do a little research on what are some fun things that I can do in my town. I live in Reno, Nevada. Like, what are some fun, kind of different, interesting things that I can do? And it gave me a whole list of ideas. And I'm going to a jazz performance this weekend, and I'm doing I'm actually going to go to see the museum on Saturday. It just got me thinking about different ways that I can do things, because you're 100% right. Sometimes you got to step up and address the big issues, and sometimes what there's to do is really take care of yourself and do whatever is fun for you and the people around you.
So one of the things you and I both do is when we talked for, I don't know, almost an hour, but both of us were out on our phones walking in a park or out in nature.
Yep.
So
yeah.
So we were getting exercise and catching up.
Absolutely. And that's that idea of that cross-layer mastery that I talked about, is that you start to see ways that you can check a couple things off. Us talking while we're walking it checks off fun, it checks off fitness, and it checked off a little bit of business for me on that day. And when you start to look at things from a kind of a collective perspective, what is the difference to your life, you start to see things like that. Like, one, like maybe, like one of your, again, we'll say your core values is adventure. Maybe you go, instead of going on a date to a restaurant, you go, I don't know, rock climbing, or you go do something that's a little bit different, so that it pulls in more of who you are. And I think it just makes life more interesting.
Yeah, for sure. We like to do little excursions that there's within a 1 or 2 hour drive of where we are, there might be an interesting park or an interesting restaurant, and we'll get 2 or 3 of us and just go in the car and go up and go have lunch, go have dinner, and then come back. And I usually will come back, go one way and come back another, so to take the long way around.
Yeah. And here's the really cool part, because sometimes people say like, oh, I don't have time to take on 4 things, like I just don't have the energy, I don't have the time to do that. And what I point out is that chances are you're already doing a couple, like obviously creativity and we'll just say, because I know you traveled a lot, so I'm gonna say creativity and fun or creativity and travel are part of your values, and and even community, because you said working with other people. So just in that, we take a trip where we go somewhere else and we make sure that we go on a different an out we use a different out and back so that we see a different part of the world. That already ticks off multiple versions or multiple categories or in your life. And when you have the intentionality, it goes from doing this thing that we just kind of do to this system that you can repeat over and over again, that will build up your confidence, that will give you the sense of like, hey, I can do this. And then you could, and here's the other part, I get all excited. Sorry if I geek out about this. When you do it in one area, you can be like, okay, how can I do it in another? How can I take that same approach of taking people on a different trip to my business for my fun and my travel?
Yes, and sometimes getting out, like many people will say they get their best ideas about business when they're doing something completely different.
Yep.
Yeah, they go for a walk, meditate, traveling. Like for me, I like traveling. It's just I don't know. It's like driving through a force field that's charging you up or something.
Yeah, no, because what it all it's doing is your business and your travel, or your business and whatever it is you're doing, they're related to your values in some way. We don't know what that way is, but there's some relation to them. And by uh, doing something different, a little bit different, it kind of triggers different thoughts, gives you different ideas, and it allows you to see things from a different perspective, which triggers your innovation. And it just allows you, and because values are proven, there's a fair amount of research on this, that values are proven to trigger what's called intrinsic motivation. So when you come up with an idea that's based on your values, you're just more likely to do it, as opposed to being told what to do, or even reading it from the umpteen amount of books that we have. When you come up with ideas that are based on your own values, you are just more likely to take that action.
Yeah. And yeah, so yeah, it's all related. I think that's the main idea is you're trying to integrate many aspects of your own life, like you're like building those things, and as your process is, you choose the core values and choose what those walls are on that graphic. Maybe I should pull that up again, just a quick review. So,
Yeah. So again, so the main idea here is that you choose 4 walls, because 4 walls are manageable. Like I looked at 5 for a while, but it actually was a little too hard to remember. 3 didn't give you enough space, and 4 just gives you a sense of groundedness in space, because the squares are very strong, solid shape. And you just think of what is important to you: money, fun, fitness, romance. Those are the ones that cover for me. When I think of like adventure and contribution and working with other people, those are all included as kind of like categories underneath those 4. But I know if I move those 4 things forward every day, my life is just better. And essentially the question comes down to, how can I leverage my values? How can I use my values today to improve my fitness? How can I use my values today to improve my romance? And what ends up happening is that you get a deeper sense of who you are, and you learn from your actions in one area that will contribute to actions in other, and just allows you to keep moving forward. And it's just like baby step after baby step. One of the things we do is we track at the end of the night, like, what are some of the actions that you took for each of those categories. And after a week or two, you're like, wow, I am moving my life forward. Like, it may not be perfect, like
yeah.
but I am moving my life forward, and it's going faster than I thought. And it's really it's just grounding, and inside of all this chaos, and all inside of all the we got there's so much stuff going on. When you're building your life one layer at a time, it really is grounding. It really is fun and allows you just to keep moving forward.
Grounding, fun, and moving forward. That sounds good. So if you want to make an appointment with Joey here, there's you can go visit certaingrowth.com/3D printed, and there's a button there to make an appointment, and that initial discovery call is free, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, thank you very much for joining today, and this has been fun.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate giving me the opportunity to talk about this.
Awesome. And we'll talk again soon.
Yes.
You can stay on. You don't have to jump out. I'm just going to end the broadcast here.